It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Welcome everyone to the Sam Lesante Show, and remember 24/7 SSPTV.com. For those of you who do not have cable, we have a YouTube channel, my friends, but you should have cable. And in Pottsville, remember Comcast 190 from 7 to 11 p.m. And in the Wilkes-Barre Mountaintop area every Saturday and Sunday from 7 to 11 p.m. And let me tell you, I get a lot of response from the people in the greater Wilkes-Barre area and Mountaintop. Thank you so much for watching. You know, every once in a while, I like to do something that's entertaining and just sit back and think a little bit. And today we have Paulette DeBella. She's an author, and she wrote this beautiful book. It's called The Tiniest Angel's Gift. It's inspiring. Well, Paulette, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations with the book.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get to the book in a second. But tell me a little bit about yourself, because I always like to know about the author, what they're all about, what their thoughts are.
I was a teacher for almost 20 years in the Hazleton Area School District. I taught at West Hazleton Elementary and then at Maple Manor Elementary Middle School. And I resigned a few years ago because I had a baby. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to stay home with her and raise her until she started school. So that's part of who I am.
What did you teach?
I taught English and language arts, pretty much the whole time that I was there. And I enjoyed that very much. Wanted to take the time to raise my daughter, though. Sure. So we'll be going back to it, though. Yeah.
And so where did this creativity come in terms of, you know, you wanting to write a book? And why did you go into this kind of book?
Well, I've always wanted to write, ever since I was little kid. You know, my mom had one of those old typewriters with the click-clack keys, and I would, even before I could spell, you know, I'd be typing and, did I make any words? You know, I always wanted to write. I always wanted to tell stories. I loved reading. So that's kind of how I got into this. This is a final product of years and years and years of little stories, short stories, things being written and filed away.
Were you always a storyteller?
I think so, yeah. I've always enjoyed that. I had a lot of teachers over the years, especially in elementary school and high school, that fostered that love of writing. It was always creative writing, write this story, you know, use these words, write a story. So always coming up with something in the imagination.
When you're writing a story or you're creating, like, what is it that are you trying to get a message across, or is it something for your own benefit?
Sometimes trying to get a message across, sometimes for my own benefit. This story was both. You know, I wanted to get the message across of the Christmas story and the birth of Christ, and thinking about it in a little bit of a different way through the lens of the Polish background. But also it was special to me, and I did it for me because it was such a long put away story that I wanted to bring to real life.
You know, it's interesting. My wife and I like to go to different museums and look at the different arts or sculptures or whatever. And I've said this story, and for the audience that have heard this story, please bear with me again. But when you go into a museum and you're looking at these marvelous paintings or these sculptures, you know, you're admiring them, and then you get a guide who's someone who is a professional person. And they'll look at the picture and they'll say, now, you see that arm over there, and you see how that arm is raised and pointing, and now, and then they interpret what that arm is pointing to. Or do you see the bottom part where the foot is? Little things that you would never imagine, Paulette.
Right, absolutely.
And all of a sudden, that beautiful painting comes alive to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so, you know, and that's what's the interesting about, you know, an author, a writer, a creator, you know, a songwriter is when they're writing something is the message. Some great songs have been written, and you know they had to be inspired by the Holy Spirit or whatever. Okay. Because it's just amazing what comes out. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And I do think in the case of this story, the Holy Spirit, as you said, definitely had something to do with it, because the way that I was inspired to write the story, I was visiting my sister at Christmas time. She had her beautiful Christmas tree up. Underneath the Christmas tree was her manger scene, you know, the little statues and the stable and all that. She had one particular statue of an angel, and it was sitting on top of the manger, had his arm out, kind of like this. Mm-hmm. And one of the Christmas tree lights had fallen into the little angel's hand.
Oh.
And I looked at that. It was an accident, you know, she didn't do that on purpose. But I looked at it and I thought to myself, that looks like a star. Mm-hmm. I could do a story about that. Mm-hmm. And I went home, and this is where I think the Holy Spirit, as you said, comes into it. I sat down at my computer, which this was in 1999, so it was a big old clunky thing, you know, turned it on. And the story just kind of wrote itself. Very quickly, just flowed out, wrote it. And that had never happened to me before. As a person who liked to write, it was always, you know, storyboarding the story out, making an outline. This just came out. And I felt then, and I still feel now, that there was a little whisper to write that, the way that it happened.
Your background in being raised, all right, and fortunately, unfortunately, today we don't have the family gatherings like we used to have, Paulette, okay, where every night you sat around the table and you were able to discuss what was going on and did you do this, and you got to know your brothers and sisters and your relatives. And unfortunately today, some people still do that, God bless them. Some people still get together, but so many people are involved with stuff like this and other stuff that they're losing out, I think, on the real basis of life. So tell me about your upbringing. How were your parents in terms of, you know, your religion, your Christianity, you know, etc., and what that meant to you? Because I think young people today some of them do not appreciate that.
I think for us growing up, I had a large family. It was my mom, my dad, I have 3 sisters, I have a brother. And my mom and dad really worked hard to make sure that we all sat down to dinner, you know, at the same time. We were talking with each other, you know, books weren't allowed at the table, phones weren't a thing then. Nothing like that. We had to talk about our day. And as far as our religion goes, I mean, in terms of holidays, things like that, the church was always right there in the center. You know, Easter, church came before the Easter Bunny. Christmas, church came before Santa. You know, so we had that. But I think the reason that we had that was because of our ethnic background. Our Polish traditions were tied very tightly to the church. So, you know, when you talk about things like Christmas, well, we had Velia, you know, Christmas Eve dinner. And that everything on the table has something to do with Christ and the birth of Christ, things like that. Easter, same thing. So, you know, growing up with that made it stick because it was constant year after year after year, always the same. And it made it stick. And so now with our family, we're trying to do the same thing, same kinds of traditions.
And the values that, you know, you grew up with, okay, carry forth in society.
I think so. I hope so.
And dealing with people and being compassionate and understanding and not too quick to criticize and to condemn, because you have this today, you know, greed, selfishness, jealousy, all right? And that just tears people apart. But I find that people who have a good Christian, and whether Catholic, Protestant, Jew, it doesn't make any difference as long as they have a faith, that it's substance. And that person who has substance then brings something to the table. Mm-hmm. So you have substance and you brought this to the table, this book, all right? Now, in the book, all right, which I read, all right, and it's very enjoyable. That's number one. It's not like, oh, let me get through the book, okay? Every page told a story, okay? Now, interesting thing about a book and an author. Are you familiar with George Bernard Shaw?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. He wrote, I think, My Fair Lady. Well, he wrote it. And he had the premiere. And once again, the audience has heard this story before, but it's interesting. And he, at the premiere, And at the end of the premiere, they had this get-together, and everyone's, going up and congratulating George, and, and who's having champagne. And this one lady's rushing through the crowd. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, goes up. Mr. Shaw, yes, I want to tell you exactly what you meant when you wrote this play. And he says, well, what was it? And she proceeded to tell him what he meant when he wrote that play. And he said to her, well, ma'am, if that's what you got out of my play, that's what I meant.
I like that.
So interpretation is, I may read this and say, boy, this really meant, and you say, well, wait a minute, I didn't get that, I got this out of it, okay? So in terms of the book, The Tiniest Angel's Gift, all right, Christina spreads her wings just like all the other angels in heaven. But she still has a big problem. It's almost time for the king's birth, and she's the only one without a gift. As she watches Mary and Joseph settled in the stable, little Christina comes up with the brightest idea to show her love. In this heartwarming tale, the tiniest angel plays one of the biggest roles in the miracle of Christmas. This beautifully illustrated story reminds us that everyone has a purpose and a special gift to share with others. Okay, so we'll go to break. We're going to talk about the creativity of the book, okay, and what Christina went through, what she saw, and what she did. And how does that relate to us in our daily activities? How does that make us a little bit better? It's like get up in the morning, thank God you're alive, and, thank Him for the day that you have, that you're going to have. But how do you make that day better to either for yourself or for other people? Okay, we're talking to Paulette DeBella, my friends. The book, The Tiniest Angel's Gift. Very interesting. How do you get the book? Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can go to Bun Books, BUNN books.com. Easy to remember. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Thank you for making our show the #1 talk show in northeastern Pennsylvania. We really appreciate it. That comes from the scientific poll that Susquehanna Polling and Research did, and we appreciate that, along with all of our other shows. I think we're one of the few in the country that has local neighborhood programming, things that are happening in your backyard. Appreciate the support. My guest today is Paulette DeBella. She wrote this book, The Tiniest Angel's Gift. If you just tuned in, we showed the show a number of times, YouTube channel, our website. Paulette, in writing the book here, okay, the tiniest little angels, there's a little angel here, and we're going to show this, holding a star. Okay, let's go back and ask you, what was the reason why you wrote this book, and what does this book mean?
Well, the reason I wrote the book was because of the inspiration that I had with seeing this scene. But what does the book mean? It means a lot more. The theme of the story is that everyone has something to give. So if you have ever been a person who is something as simple as looking for a gift to give to someone, you have something inside of you, okay, that you can give. And that something that's inside of us is our time, our patience, our love, and you can use that to help others in any kind of way.
So Christina encountered a couple things during her journey here, okay? And during her journey, she wanted to give a gift, all right? And you just said, I wrote this, as you said it, I wrote it down, the gift of time. Sometimes, a gift is, what are you giving a person a gift, all right? Sometimes sometimes a person would like to hear someone say, I love you, okay? Other than, taking advantage of somebody, or someone would like to be, let me be kind to that person, okay, other than mean or objective, okay? And that's sometimes when you have, I think when you have some substance, I keep saying this, when you have a background, okay, and it's unfortunate sometimes where parents today do not see that their children are going to a service, okay, either a mass or a service, a Protestant service, and they take things for granted. In this thing here in the book, Christina it goes to a series of things, okay? Talk us through this without
giving too much
away.
Giving
away from the book. I mean, the book is very inspiring, really. I mean, I sat at my office desk and read it. I was really, it just, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking of the days of my Christmas and my kids, my family and my grandmothers and grandfather. You know, everything went through your mind. Did you find the same?
I did, definitely. There were definitely memories that went into some of the story, yeah. So Christina is the littlest angel in heaven, as you said, and she's trying to find a gift for the newborn baby Jesus, because all the other angels in heaven have one, she doesn't.
Yeah.
And so she ends up coming down to earth and following Mary and Joseph through the city of Bethlehem and finding out that they're so far away in the stable, it's so dark, nobody's going to be able to find them. You know, what can I do about this problem? And so that's kind of where she starts to get the idea for her gift and a way to light the way for people to find the baby Jesus. So.
And the book, I mean, you're staying in the scripture. I mean, so there's nothing that's off on the book. It's just how she approaches this, okay?
Correct. The book definitely is biblically accurate, and I did have the book run by several Roman Catholic priests, including our bishop, just to make sure that everything was the way it needed to be.
In the book, okay, when Christina finds out what she wants to give, beautiful illustrations here, and we'll try to show you some of them, but the book is really nice. It's just for all ages, okay? The star was an inspiration when you saw at your sister's home,
yes,
the manger,
yes,
and the angel sitting on top, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that gave you the inspiration to write the book?
Yes.
Okay. What did you, when you were writing this book, what were you getting out of the book in your creativity and writing?
I definitely got the satisfaction inside of being able to tie together the story, not just with, you know, the Bible story of Jesus being born, but also bringing into it a little bit of my Polish ethnicity at the end, because the story is about a star. You could see that by the front picture. But we believe that one of the things we celebrate on Christmas Eve, we don't start our celebrations until the first star appears in the sky. And so I kind of threw in that question of, well, where did that star come from? How did it start? And what's its meaning? So I got the satisfaction of being able to answer that question at the end of the story.
In the book, okay, beaming with joy when she turned and found herself facing the Father himself.
Yes.
Okay? So, my dear, the Father says, you have discovered your gift. Go then and give it to my son. But first, I have something to ask you, he said. Christina says, what is it, Father? He says, it is a great responsibility, for it requires your constant help and watchfulness. He paused and smoothed his white beard. Christina, will you be the guardian angel of the Christ? Oh, Father, she said. She cried, thank you. Yes, I will do this for him. Parts of this, you know, where you begin to interpret as to what everyone can do in life, all right, as to what we can do and help others, okay? Right. And these are the kind of things that, you know, maybe someone reads this and interprets it a little differently, okay?
Also, when talking about Christina becoming the guardian angel of the Christ and how that happens, for me, it planted a little like contemplative seed of, well, Jesus was human too. He was both human and divine. He had a guardian angel. We have a guardian angel. You know, let's think about that a little bit. You know, how did that's pretty neat, you know, because he understands us.
And that's where the gift of faith comes in, and that's where I think parents today or spouses or whatever should make sure that their children are getting some kind of religious into them, okay? Because it's so secular today. It's sad. People don't care about Mass anymore, weekends. Thank God we have the Mass. And I keep saying people, and I don't want to put everyone in the same thing, but I get thrilled when I see it at St. John Bosco, which I go to, and I see these families come in with their kids, and it just inspires me to know that they're teaching their children what it should be and why religion is important, okay? And then when you get so rich in life and you have so many things in life, you forget about what it is. And Bishop Timlet's on my show said, Sam, you can live the good life and you can have all the things in the world till you hit that bump in the road. Then all of a sudden it's pray for my mother, pray for my kid, pray for my... All of a sudden religion comes into it.
We want to keep that with us all the time.
Yeah. Come back, I want to talk about your Polish tradition for a couple of minutes. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks, 24/7, SSPTV.com. My guest today is Paulette DeBella, wrote this beautiful book. You got to get it. It's The Tiniest Angel's Gift, okay? You mentioned here about your Polish tradition. So you're pretty strong with that, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it.
It's a big part of our life.
Tell me a little bit about it.
For our Polish tradition for Christmas?
Yeah.
So we have lots of different things that we do. We call it the Velia, and it's our Christmas Eve celebration. It can't start until the first star appears in the sky, which is usually a kid's job in the family. They have to like watch out the window to see when it, whoop, there it is, okay, now we can start. And we start with a big dinner. We have different things on the table, different foods representing...
Sorry? Kind of foods?
Well, got to have the pierogies, of course.
Yeah.
And then everything is unsalted. There's fish. Everything is unsalted because Jesus is the salt of the earth and he hasn't come yet. So it's a unsalted and a meatless meal. We have Jesus in the center of the table with some hay under the tablecloth to represent the manger. There's always an empty chair for the, unexpected guest. So different little traditions like that. And then afterwards, when dinner's all over, that's when the family gets to exchange their gifts. And really for us, Christmas Eve is Christmas. Christmas Day is great and we have fun and Santa comes, but Christmas Eve is the day.
And when you're doing these things, you said unsalted because Jesus is the salt of the earth. The children who are there see this and they learn this, correct?
It's another way of trying to teach the faith, All those traditions mean something. It's not just something we do. It has a meaning behind it. Yeah.
I think that's fabulous. The Italians get together and they have their big Italian, and everyone has traditions, and you respect everyone's tradition. It's interesting, and I have to applaud you for keeping this alive and letting people understand things in life. The book is called The Tiniest Angel's Gift, my friends. Paulette DeBella. You can get this on. Now here's an interesting website. Bun Books, BUNN Books.com. You can't forget that, okay? And we have the Amazon or Barnes & Noble. How'd you get the name Christina for the angel?
Well, in the end of the story, she becomes the guardian angel of the Christ.
Yeah.
So Christina, Christ, I felt that they matched up.
Is that how you got
That's
the
how
name?
I came up with that, yeah.
Good luck with the book. I really
Thank you very much.
I enjoy shows like this, to be able to just think a little bit, be creative, etc. Get the book, my friends. You'll really enjoy it. Thanks for watching us. We'll see you next time.